Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening in and welcome to show number 62 of the Australian Rock Show. This is Dennis Gray from the Rockin' and Rollin' Gray Brothers. And today is Tuesday, the 13th of September, 2016, when this show is being recorded. The weekend before last, we headed along to the annual Ted Mulry Memorial Day, Saturday, the 3rd of September to be exact, held out at Leppington in Sydney's West. And folks, we had the best time. It was a really, really enjoyable and very special afternoon, and I'm so glad we made the effort to attend. A very short history lesson for those listeners tuning in from outside of Australia. Martin Albert Ted Mulry was a singer, talented songwriter and bass player, though he could play guitar very well, let's not forget. Ted was born in Oldham in England, but emigrated to Australia, where in 1970 and 71 he tasted success as a solo artist. A short while after this time period, he formed his own band known as the Ted Mulry Gang with drummer Herm Kovac and guitarist Les Hall. Gary Dixon slotted in on second guitar after the release of their first album. Now, the Ted Mulry Gang, or TMG as they are often referred to, were one of the hardest working live outfits in Australia, and in the 1970s were AM radio mainstays. They sold thousands of records, released several albums and singles, and their singles in particular, the number one Jump in My Car, Darktown Strutter's Ball and Crazy, are now woven into the rich fabric of Australian rock and roll history. A one-time teen idol and gifted musician, Ted was also a sharp songwriter who had an amazing knack for punching out catchy melodies and good time rock and roll songs. That, to me, is where the magic of Ted Mulry lies. Good time, hard rockin' music, played loud, which makes you feel good. And although he lost his battle with cancer back in 2001, the rock and roll music he created lives on for many of us. Now in its fifth year, the Ted Mulry Memorial Day is a chance for fans to celebrate Ted's life and the amazing music he left us with. This was the first time I'd attended the Memorial Day, and I'm already looking forward to next year. Organised by Ron Clayton, TMG's longtime roadie, who does a truly amazing job as band historian and indeed flying the flag for Ted and the boys with as much passion as he did 4 decades back. The day is about Ted, but Ronnie the roadie deserves a big pat on the back for making it happen. Bands make it rock, roadies make it roll. Family, friends and fans gathered at the nearby Forest Lawn Memorial Gardens to pay tribute to Ted before making their way to the nearby Lockie's Tavern, which is where the live rock and roll, the booze and the memories are shared. The live music was courtesy of Get Rocked, featuring Rick Lum from Hush, by the way. Anyway, I thought it would be fun to bring along the trusty Roland R05 and record the stories of a bunch of fans, which I did, along with catching up with Ted's brother Steve and the aforementioned Ron Clayton, both of whom we've had on the Australian Rock Show previously. Shows number 17 and 42 if you wish to go back and listen. Folks, this day had a real buzz of excitement about it. Of course, the reformed TMG featuring Steve on vocals and Mark Evans on bass gigged later on in the day at the nearby Revesby Workers. Only the second gig out with this new lineup, and folks, the band are firing on all cylinders. Back in the day, they were always one of the best live bands in this country, a reputation which can be hard to live up to after some time away. But let me state again, they are firing on all cylinders. I'll talk about that later on in the show. TMG have got gigs booked in Queensland and Victoria for November and a couple of New South Wales shows locked in for December, which I'll mention. Do not miss out, cause trust me, you will regret it. Actually, when I walked out of the Revesby show, absolutely buzzing, I looked over at my brother and said, December 9th, Dwayari, part of their old stomping ground. Are we there? Absolutely, he said, grinning. Let's do it again. A vinyl rip there of Let's Do It Again, lifted from TMG's 1976 album Steppin' Out. 40 years on and still sounding fantastic to these ears. Okay, let's get into this show with a couple of interviews. First up, we'll chat with Steve Mulry. Then we'll crank a tune from the 3rd of September TMG gig at Revesby. And then we'll hear from Ron Clayton, a.k.a. Ronnie Roadie. Sounds good? Here we go. Steve, how important is a day like today for you?
Oh, today in particular is exceptional because this whole week, I mean, it was my birthday last week. Thursday was the 15th anniversary of Ted passing. Yesterday was Ted's birthday. It would have been his 69th birthday. Today, of course, we had the memorial, first of all. Then we come here to the Lappington Hotel for our yearly gathering for the memorial. And what better than having Rick Lum play at it?
Sure.
So this tonight is going to be particularly, I think, emotional, and not just for us, but for the fans as well. It's the build up to this, it's been coming for a while, and that's why it's sold out show. The fans, as well as us, I think, are feeling it more than just wanting to go to a gig. They're actually feeling how important this is. The Memorial Weekend, birthday weekend. It's I can't explain how special, and of course nervous.
And how's Mark Evans enjoying it?
Look, I think he's doing it. I like the job he's doing, and I think he's enjoying it so much so that he enjoys going to rehearsal, which is unusual for Mark. He doesn't. Yep. He's not the type to do that. So I think he's really enjoying it.
Nice. And you've just exited Black Label recently. You've got some solo stuff coming up.
Yeah. Look, I've got another band, original band called Phantom Mark 5, which I'm really enjoying at the moment. Nothing new. We're not breaking any new ground, but I really enjoy it. Something different. I've had there's so many things in the pipeline that I can't get to because I'm so busy. But yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to the future.
Is there? Are you enjoying it so much with TMG that there's going to be a possibility of heading into the studio, work on new material, or?
What shall I say about this? It's interesting you should say that. No. It's interesting you should say that because at rehearsal, we had a rehearsal on Thursday night, and the subject was brought up for whatever reason in regards to a publicist, using a publicist. They said, but you would only use a publicist really if you're going to release something new. And Gary piped up, Gary Dixon just said, why don't we go in the studio and record a song? Totally, I don't think any of us expected that, So who knows? You're right, you should never say never.
Have a good night tonight, and thank you for a lot of us enjoy the TMG music, and it's wonderful that not only to celebrate Ted's life today, but to have TMG perform later in the day.
I think it's a great thing, and I feel overwhelmed in a way, and so honoured to be even asked to be a part of it. I'm just blown away.
He would be proud. Thanks.
Thank you. Cheers.
Nice to catch up with Ron Clayton, long-time TMG roadie. Ron, how special is a day like today for you?
Well, it's special in that all these people turned out to pay their respects for Ted and to honour his name. It's a little difficult though, like the family. I mean, it's been a memorial of his passing and his birthday. Everything's all one on top of the other. Yeah.
And of course, today, unlike previous years, has an extra special feel to it, obviously with the band performing straight after tonight's event at Revesby.
Yeah, definitely. It's the band sort of the event, the memorial event was done all beforehand, but the band sort of tied in to do the performance tonight as just to cap off the day, which was pretty good.
Okay, and that's sold out?
I believe so.
Nice. What do you think the reasoning was behind getting the band back together this year? Was it Herm decided that?
I don't know the reason, but the time is right. I was a bit hesitant about whether it was about it being done right, but the response for the last couple of shows has been pretty good, and the band's just as good live as what they were. I'd spoken to Herman last year on several occasions, and I said to Herm, I think the time is right for the band to go on the road, but I wanted to do a show with several different singers, so it wasn't seen to be replacing Ted in any way, shape or form. And Herm said, oh no, it won't ever happen, and then 6-7 months later I get a phone call saying, we're going to go and do this, and do you want to be a part of it? We'll understand if you don't. and I said, I'm going to be a part of it. You're not going to leave me behind.
Sure. Who did you have in mind? Anyone in your head?
No, I didn't.
Singers,
no one. Not from my point, but I just, me personally, I just wanted somebody that could have covered the scope of Ted's solo through to the latest stuff.
Okay.
So, it would have been more like a Ted Mulry songbook type thing, but with the actual band providing the music.
Sure.
That was me. But, the concept that's now is working really good. And
for a while there in the late 80s, you may remember that there was a catchphrase called Dag or Daggy, and they used to play on the 70s kind of... TMG were on builds, like a Get Flared build, which I thought, not cheapened them, but damn fine rock band. They shouldn't be on a quiche kind of 70s night, you know what I mean? They're way above that.
Yeah.
So in some ways, that they did carry on into the early 90s and had a lot of power. And now that they can stand alone and do it away from all that, no tag attached to it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, in the 90s, they'd done quite a few of those retrospective shows. They did, like you mentioned, Get Flared. They did the one that had Harry Casey on it, which was, I don't believe, they didn't fit the thing, but work was work. I guess they did a couple other ones in Sydney.
Yeah.
The band has always been above that. They've been heaps better.
Yeah. How do you think they are with Mark Evans? Fits in well?
Yeah, it's just, Mark, from what I noticed, Mark was having a little trouble learning some of the bass because unlike bass players usually play notes, Ted was actually playing, having been a guitar player, he was playing chords, so some of the songs were a little difficult, but he's done well, and I openly stated I was hesitant about Steve being the right person because Steve, as he will openly acknowledge, has spent all of his vocal training to sing like Ronnie James Dio and Ozzy Osbourne, and Ted was a pop singer, and I personally didn't think that Steve would handle the pop kind of songs, but at the night at the Bridge, I was just, even in the sound check leading up to it, I was still a bit shaky on it. But on the night, it was just like Steve's lips were moving and Ted was singing. I was ecstatic.
Nice. And I've got to talk to you about the arias, which there's been a lot mentioned online about TMG not being included into the Aria Hall of Fame. Are they up for induction again this year?
Well, we've done our bit. We did the petition. We've submitted the stuff. And I haven't pushed any further. I mean, I just have to leave it up to what's happening, and I don't know who's up, but the silver chairs and all of that have become eligible as of this year, I believe. So it could be a struggle. It's like there's a whole generational thing gone, and because the Arias is based on...
That shouldn't matter, though, because there's a lot of artists, obviously, from the mid-'60s who are...
Yeah, that's right. There was 101... Last year, there was 101 artists who were in contention.
Yeah.
Of that's a back artist going back to the 60s.
Yeah.
But now that a lot of the current lot are now got the 25-year or 20-year thing behind them, it increases that number. But the Arias are much like... The Arias are like all them reality TV things like The Voice. They're all driven by who's going to download it off YouTube and so when they go and put the grandfather generation on, the young kids are not interested in that, so they have to try to put people in all the way along the line.
I often wonder how much music knowledge, some of the board on the ARIA panel or whoever make those decisions have, because if it's somebody who's 30 years old, they might just lump TMG into a novelty tag.
Yeah.
Oh, they had one or two hits, that's it.
Yeah.
No cultural impact, whereas somebody like Red Gum or whoever, they made a social comment or...
I've probably stated before that you know, the criteria for being in is to have a cultural impact. Now, Jump in My Car has virtually been on every compilation album of Australian music since 1976. Now, if that's not having a cultural impact, then there isn't another song that's ever been released that has that impact.
And I think I've also written that a cultural impact of being beamed in to teenagers' lounge rooms via Countdown, not only TMG but many bands. That's what weaned. That's a cultural impact as well.
Yeah.
I've got to ask you about your book. How's the book sale?
Well, I did. Initially, I was only going to do 100 copies because you know I was told there wouldn't be any interest in it. I sold the first 200.
Yep.
And I've done a reprint, so I'm on a second run of 200. I haven't pushed or publicised, but you know I'm going pretty good. So
there is interest.
The band is allowing me to sell it as part of the merch.
Nice.
There's nothing that the band has been rather happy about the book because there isn't anything out there on the Ted Mulry gang in any way, shape or form other than what came out through the 70s in all those magazines. So it compiles a lot of things and it gives a good indication of how hard life was on the road during that period of time when everybody thought it was a holiday. So, but the book sale's going pretty good.
Okay, and people want to get a hold of the book, just find you on Facebook.
Yeah.
I think
or like I said, it'll be available at all these upcoming live shows. So,
I guess, as we were sort of alluding to before, there's perhaps a little bit more renewed interest now in the band this time around, and that's probably been because there has been a significant hiatus. Shows are booked already into next year, you were sort of saying.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, they're going to stay away from the mass. Like they're not going to do so many. They're only going to do so many shows a year, and so when the next lot of shows come around, they'll probably be more interstate and away from Sydney. But yeah, the response has been pretty good.
Nice. So how far is it going to run into? Do you know? Is it they're planning into a year away?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the guys are getting old.
Yeah.
You can go to bed tonight and not wake up tomorrow. So, we're all in that generation.
Yeah.
So nobody knows how long it's going to go. But we had planned on probably next year and the year after, from what I gather. But
I spoke to Steve before, and he hinted that they may go into the studio.
Well, I think that'll be the next move. If it's all comfortable and it feels good.
And does that also depend on how well the Greatest Hits CD does?
Well, that could be.
Yeah.
The thing is with the Greatest Hits stuff, it's all repeat. It's all stuff that's been repeated from previous greatest. So there's nothing really new on it. So if you've been a long-time fan, the Greatest Hits LP shouldn't really appeal to you because you've either got Reunion or you've got the 25 greatest, the 18 greatest hits that came out in 1982 or, so, yeah.
So post Mushroom Records, when the Mushroom Records contract finished, was that 80 was the last album, is that right? On Mushroom?
80 was the last LP.
Was that the Locked In album? So
the contract actually didn't finish till 82 because it was a 5-year contract. So, and they had recorded an LP, but it didn't get released.
That's what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah.
So, do you get much interest or many queries about that unreleased album?
A lot of people ask about unreleased product, and it's not a real lot you can say about it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like I have the copy. We have played it here on several occasions over the past, and some of the stuff on it is the best stuff they ever done. And it's a pity that it never saw the light of day, but I think because the Locked In album hardly sold at all, the band, it came out in that era when everybody was moving into the punk rock and
new wave thing.
And
did Mushroom push the band in any significant way or not really?
I don't think they pushed them any better than what EMI had.
Yeah.
They promised that they were going to, and that's my opinion on it. But
I guess looking back then, they were the hot bands with the Sunny Boys and whoever they were pushing.
Yeah,
maybe
they had a big catalogue. So, you know, they were constantly pushing bands. But I just know from touring, from the years that we were touring that there was no more product in the shops. You know, we would be touring places and kids couldn't go out and buy it because it just wasn't there.
What about? I've always wondered, was there enough international attention to warrant a tour ever being mooted, like to the UK or?
I don't know. There was a bit of interest when Lazy Eyes in 1978, when Lazy Eyes charted in America and went up into the 50s. There was a bit of interest, but we were already stuck on the Disturbing the Peace tour, and they wouldn't back out on it.
We'll wrap it up, Ron. Thanks for your time. And a day like today is really special for so many people.
Yeah.
And so thank you for doing all the work and keeping the memory alive of not only Ted but the band, and also your book. I think I mentioned to you after we'd finished chatting that I enjoyed your book just as much for the memories of personally growing up on the northern beaches. And you managed to capture a time period of Australia which doesn't exist, you know, particularly the touring aspect. And I think younger bands today have no idea of the slog. You know what
I'm running a tour tomorrow up the northern beaches that follows the history of the band. Like, you know, we do Kirribilli, where Jump in My Car was filmed and where Ted last lived before he passed away, and I'm taking them to Manly, to the Manly Youth Centre, where Malcolm Young performed his very first live.
Nice.
That was the first time he ever played live, and then we go to Dee Why, where the guys used to live, and up to Mona Vale, where Herman and Les and Malcolm Young lived with Velvet Underground, and up to Palm Beach, where Jamaica Rum was filmed, and then we go up to Smokey Dawson's Ranch, where Lazy Eyes was filmed. You know, it just follows the. And I'll show them the old building where Darktown Strutters Ball film clip was done, and then I'm going to take them across to the Young House in Burwood, which ironically is National Trust listed, unlike every other place there. And then so we're just going central to central. But
sounds like a great day, and I imagine it's a lot of fans will enjoy that, and it's great that you do that.
Yeah,
it really is appreciated.
Yeah, I do it at my cost, but I basically catered a lot for most of the people that came from interstate.
Okay.
You know, I did one several years ago, and they all enjoyed it. And it's a day out; they get to see the beaches. And
how'd you rate the band with Coxie in the band? A lot of firepower.
Well, I never actually saw the band with Mick Cox in the band. I'd already started a business of my own, and had a couple of little kids, so I couldn't afford to be on the road. Sure. And Mick wasn't in it long enough for me to actually get along to see a show.
Sure.
I saw him several times with Tino, and that was quite good.
Actually, they've got a Newcastle show coming up before the end of the year, right? It's the first show in 20-odd years, 23 years in Newcastle. So how does that feel for you to, being a Newcastle boy,
Well, it's in Belmont where I live, so
really,
it's within walking distance. So.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to meet you in person as well.
Yeah,
appreciate it. TMG there live from Revesby in Sydney on September the 3rd with Heart of Stone, which is my all-time favourite TMG tune. I ain't kidding you. If you close your eyes, Steve's vocals are so much like Ted's, and the band sound amazing. The set too was pretty interesting, I thought, with a couple of deep cuts like Disturbing the Peace, Wanted Man, a thumping Without You, and a blazing take of the Stones' Live With Me were all included. And as you may have heard from the interviews with Steve and Ron, the band are doing select shows throughout the remainder of the year and into next year, which is great, great news. And I encourage you to get along because the band really are on top form. Actually, if you're one of our younger listeners and you dig cool rock and roll, you need to get a ticket and go see one of this country's best ever live rock and roll bands. Les Hall and Gary Dixon are two of the most underrated guitar players who deserve way more recognition than what they receive. Les Hall's solos that night were just blistering. That's the word I'd use, blistering. You know, AC/DC are one of this country's, make that the world's greatest ever rock and roll outfits. But let's not forget that the linkage between TMG's Les Hall and drummer Herm Kovac, both of whom did time with Malcolm Young in Velvet Underground, all come from the same school of rock and roll, and it's just there in the sound of this band. When these guys plug in and crank the amps, for me, it's the sound of Australian rock and roll. And of course, Mark Evans is crunching it out on bass, standing back there near the amps just like he did with AC/DC. Love it. So again, go get a ticket and let the music do the talking. Okay, gig dates. Got a pen? Friday, November the 11th, TMG are on at RSL Southport up in the Gold Coast there. Saturday, November 12th, Kedron Wavell Services Club in Chermside in Brisbane. Sunday, November 13th, it's an afternoon show at the Yacht Club in Mooloolaba in Queensland. Saturday, November 19th, the band are on at Palms at Crown in Melbourne. Friday, December 9th, DYRSL on the northern beaches of Sydney. Saturday, December 10th, Belmont 16-foot Sailing Club, Belmont, New South Wales, up there in Newcastle. And there's one show already listed for 2017, which is Saturday, February 18th at the Bridge Hotel in Rozelle in Sydney there. Okay, I also sat down and did a couple of fan interviews at the Memorial Day with some loyal TMG fans, Carol, Kelly and Jenny, which was a lot of fun. Thanks, ladies, for sharing your memories. They all had great stories of growing up with TMG. Interviews which I'll air in a moment. But first, I want to play what for me was one of the highlights of the reunited TMG set from a week or so ago. And it was Gary Dixon alone with an acoustic guitar running through Ted's classics, Julia and Falling in Love Again, which were, in a word, stunning. So what's your name?
Kelly.
And why is a day like today important for you?
Well, this is now the fifth year that we've had the Memorial Day, and every year it gets bigger and bigger. It's really exciting because the first year, I think there may have been about a dozen people, but today there's at least 50 people here today, which is really good. And of course, Ron Clayton, he's the roadie for TMG, and he's kept their memory alive, which is really good. So yeah, for me it's just great because I can bring my memorabilia, because none of my friends are TMG fans, so I try and share my memories and they go, oh yeah, TMG, and all they say is they only remember Jump in My Car.
They get stereotyped as a bubblegum kind of band in some ways, which they're definitely not.
And I say they sang so much more than, that I think Les was one of the best songwriters and guitar players personally, but I'm a fan, of course. So.
Sure. Yeah. And who have we got here?
My name's Carol.
Carol, and why is a day like today special for you?
Well, I'm reliving my teenage years, so that's always a good thing.
Sure. And how do you think the music still stands up from when it was released to today?
I still love all their music, so I'm really
time, without a doubt. For me, it has anyway.
Yeah,
okay.
But I'm really looking forward to seeing them live tonight because I haven't seen them in concert for 22 years.
Really, and that's right. Today, I guess, is extra special because in previous years when you've had this day, the band have been inactive. So to have them perform later tonight is special.
They did come here in 2013. The band came, and that was more just to meet the fans. It was just a fan day, and I remember the day there was a band playing, and there were some instruments there, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if they picked up some instruments? But that just wasn't going to happen. They said very clearly that it wasn't on the cards. So I'm not sure how it all happened. It just seemed to happen really, really quickly. It was like all the fans would get on the page and say, wish they'd get back together, Then all of a sudden, it just happened really quickly. But I've been told that Herman was behind it all.
Okay.
Because Herman heard that a lot of these older bands that are reforming are actually making quite a bit of money.
Right.
So he started the ball rolling. But I think Les was the one that, this is what I've heard, was the hardest one to get to come back on board.
Okay.
But I think he's obviously quite happy because they've now got more tour dates, and they're planning more tours for next year as well. That's what I've been told. So,
and people come from all over the country just for today, and I've come from Melbourne. So,
really? Have they announced Melbourne dates yet? Or?
Yes, they're playing at the Palms at Crown
the
in
casino,
November. November, yes.
Nice.
So I'm booked in there.
Okay. So let's drift way back if I can have a bit more of your time. So how did you discover TMG? Was it...
Countdown. And I also won tickets to Rocktober at Festival Hall. And I went there and fell in love with TMG.
Huh. So you are from Melbourne?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a Melbourne perspective of TMG this afternoon. Good. So were they headlining that day, or who else was on the bill?
No, I think Sherbet were on as well.
Okay.
But
around Australia in 80 Days tour?
look, it's all rather fuzzy these days, but it was in the around 77, around that time.
Yep.
But they were always my number one band.
Right.
Out of everybody.
Okay.
So I followed them whenever they came to Melbourne. I was there.
Yep.
Even if I got into trouble off Mum.
What about into the 80s? Did you follow them into the early 80s?
I don't know that they played in a lot of the pubs down here, or I didn't. It wasn't publicised like it is today. Like today, you got access to more information. Back then, it was sort of hard to get the information.
I actually think the opposite. I actually think there's such a volume of information now that bands play, and I completely miss it.
Yeah.
Just because you've got to follow so many Facebook pages and it doesn't show up. And whereas at least back then you could read Ram or Duke or whatever, and you'd check the gig guide, and you wouldn't miss it.
I would check the gig guide, and if they were playing, I would go to see them. But the last time I saw them was in a pub in South Yarra in early 1990s, about 92.
Yep.
So
Mick Cox was in the lineup from Rose Tattoo.
But anyway, that was the last time I saw them because children and marriage got in the way.
Okay. What about Kelly? Your very first. Let's drift back to how you got into TMG.
Well, of course, I saw them on Countdown, and they did come to Wagga because I come from Junee Country, New South Wales. So for a big Countdown band to come to the country was a very exciting thing.
And can I just pause? And that's the power of Countdown then as well, because you're in a country town in New South Wales.
Yes.
Countdown is, for teenagers at that time, it's beamed into the lounge room, and it's a massive thing.
Exactly.
In your week.
Yes.
So you're digesting so many bands, and it's so important, right?
Well, I remember the Around Australia in 80 Days tour, and my mum wouldn't let me go because I was too young, and I was absolutely devastated. And then they did their own tour. They were the headline band, and they toured with Rabbit, and that was the Stepping Out Across Australia tour, and that's when I finally got to see them live. And I just remember going around the back of the where they played. They played in the Picture Theatre in Wagga. And anyway, so all these girls were around the back and they're all yelling out, TMG, TMG. And I remember, I'm pretty certain it was Ron, and he came to the top of the stairs and he said, F off, they're not coming out, go home. And, and Les was the only one that came out. And I just remember he was at the top of the stairs and he was dressed in the black satin. He was he was absolutely gorgeous. So, unfortunately, that was the only time I got to see them, because being in a country town, you could never get up to Sydney. Yeah, very, very difficult. But then, of course, I loved it, TMG. So watched them on Countdown and collected posters and, got as much as I could through TV Week and things like that. And then, of course, they drifted off, but I always stayed a fan. And then when the internet came to be, it was really good, because then that's when I met Ron through a website, and so started meeting other fans. And I actually went to Ron's house one day because he's got a whole garage full of memorabilia. It's just been really good, and now for them to finally be back together, it's very surreal, but it's very exciting at the same time. I did see them at the Bridge Hotel, and it was amazing. And everyone was a bit sceptical about Steve Mulry singing and whether he would be able to replace Ted.
Of course, I think he pulls it off nicely.
Can't, but I think he did an amazing job, and TMG sounded fantastic. So they were loud, and I took my son.
Nice.
So my son has grown up with TMG, and my son thought TMG were fantastic as well. So.
Okay, so if you had to name, one or two of your all-time favourite tracks, what would they be?
I I really like, I don't know if you've heard any of the unreleased stuff, but it's really good. But Wanted Man, I think that was a very underrated track. I really like Hard Luck Woman, and Crazy. I think Crazy is a great song. I really like that one. Nice. Of course, Jump in My Car, but there's lots and lots of other ones that, you know, Can't Take It With You. And what about you, Carol?
Too many to mention. But what I like these days is because we got the Facebook page going, that's brought all the fans together, and I think that's built the momentum up over the years, because every Thursday night Ron would put film clips on, and it was like that was our night, that we'd all get on Facebook and we'd all talk and we'd all swap stories and watch the film clips, and that's how we've all reconnected, and that's how this day has actually built up over the time. So I think that's been a great thing.
Ron is definitely the person that
keeps the flame burning.
Definitely,
and,
he's so loyal to the band, and he's been so good to the fans. He just does so much to satisfy our thirst for TMG.
So do you think it's obviously more than time they got inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame?
I am wearing my T-shirt tonight, and it says I support the campaign for TMG into the Hall of Fame. I personally have written letters myself to the ARIA people. This was many years ago, and they wrote back and explained what happens and the processes. I don't understand it myself. I think it's a real injustice, because when you see someone like Jojo Zepp, who I think is okay, but there's only a couple of hits that I know of. Everybody, and actually last night I was on watching ABC, and they were interviewing Molly Meldrum. It was called One on One, and he even mentioned TMG. He didn't say about the Hall of Fame, but he mentioned that they were, those foundation bands from the 1970s.
I think more than anything that TMG suffer from they get the novelty tag, as I mentioned, which is incorrect. So many great rock albums. But if you ask the man on the street, they just can name one or two songs. And I think that general perception, it seems to be what a lot of the ARIA people think. They haven't had an impact on Australian culture.
It's a real injustice, because I am a fan, and of course I'm biased, but I listen to TMG all day, every day. I listen to them in my car, and the lyrics, they're not just a bit of a bubblegum band. Their lyrics are very meaningful, and I just think it's a real injustice, and hopefully next year, or this year maybe, is the year for TMG, and especially now that they've reformed, I think that would just put the icing on the cake.
I was planning on calling someone from the ARIAs with all my stats in front of me, and then I'll have to
that article that you wrote about them,
I answered all the points, the criteria of why they're not in there.
It's a very strong argument, and
thank you.
And let's just hope that somebody sees common sense and makes it happen.
Thanks for sharing your memories today.
Yeah, and we love TMG. Hi, Les.
Have a great night tonight.
We will. We're so looking forward to it.
We're so excited.
Good. Thank you. So what's your name and where are you from?
My name's Jenny, and I'm from Melbourne.
Nice, Jenny. And what does a day like today mean to you?
Look, it means a lot. Having been a TMG fan for a long time, and also having met and known Ted for quite a while, it's lovely to see so many people coming together for him and remembering him and his music as well. That's really important.
Okay. How did you know Ted?
I suppose we met through mutual friends, and anytime they were in Melbourne, we'd go see the band and hang out afterwards, and it was just always a lot of fun.
How did you discover, were you a fan of Ted during his solo period, or
Yeah, indeed, I was actually.
Okay.
I was.
So was it radio you heard him, or how did you become aware of him?
It would have been radio, I'm guessing. Memory's a bit, disjointed. But yeah, I'm guessing it would have been radio, and it was just, although it was a very different thing. They were so melodic and love stories, and then of course when TMG started, that was a little bit different too,
Okay. Did you see Ted in his solo?
No, I didn't, unfortunately. No.
So which suburb did you grow up in?
Kew.
In Kew.
In Melbourne.
So what was your local venue? Were you going to?
Well, there was the local town hall Q Club.
Yep. Okay.
And I remember Sherbet were there, and a few other bands as well. So
Okay.
I don't recall TMG ever playing there though.
Okay.
I'd have to ask Ron. He'd be more than able to tell me.
Was that your first concert?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well,
So
locally,
Sherbet
yeah.
headlined.
Oh yeah, I was a Sherbet girl.
A Sherbet fan more than a TMG fan.
Well, a Sherbet fan first.
Okay.
Sherbet fan first, and
Yep.
then TMG. As I say, we met through mutual friends, and we kind of just went from there.
Okay, so you would have been glued to Countdown every week?
Well,
every
I
weekend,
went to
like a lot of
Countdown
kids?
from the very first Countdown episode because Sherbet were on. And so we wanted to go and see the guys live. So we went there and we got on really well with all the crew. So then they would just provide us with tickets every week.
Okay.
And they
so
would
that's
ask
the very
us to
first
be...
show where I think Skyhooks were on first, right? Were they on the very first show?
Well, I don't know, but I can tell you Sherbet were.
Okay.
And John Farnham, I believe, hosted it.
I think Skyhooks did the first show with Colour TV.
Oh, yeah, I think you could be right there, actually.
So
Yeah.
how were you, if they hadn't been on, if it hadn't been aired before, how were you aware that the program was coming up?
Can't even recall that.
Can't recall that?
It's too far
Okay.
away. But we did get tickets for the first show, but then we got on so well with the crew on the floor.
Yeah.
They just gave us tickets every week, and they'd put us in the background dancing and on film clips, on the famous John Paul Young Yesterday Heroes film clip, which my kids think is just hilarious. Now they look back at it.
So that, we're talking about an era where music was so important to yourself and teenagers.
Oh, totally.
Are your kids?
Totally.
Do they have that same passion or the
Look,
same?
I think they do. We have many discussions because I don't believe their so-called music is really music. I say, well, my music still, standing the test of time, and I've done the right thing musically by my children. When I put my music on, I catch them and they know the words,
Right.
to...
Do they respect it? What
I
you
think
play?
they do,
Yeah. What do they listen to? I'll see if I know it.
Oh, look, I couldn't even tell you. My youngest son's only 14 and
Right.
he wants to be a DJ. My nephew's a world-renowned DJ.
Okay.
And he's very successful. He's in LA at the moment,
Nice.
and he does Las Vegas every Friday and Saturday, I think it is, with
Okay.
Calvin Harris. So he's
Yep.
doing really, really well.
Does he occasionally slip in some sherbet, some sherbs?
Oh, look, I don't think he would, no.
So what bands were you seeing as a teenager growing up in Melbourne?
mainly Sherbet, TMG, of course you've got your Hush,
Yep.
Dragon were very, very big.
Yep.
Also smaller bands, not so much smaller, but bands like Taste,
Yep.
Texas, I don't know if you've heard of Ken Murdoch joined Texas. That
we
was
interviewed
great.
Ken Murdoch and Michael Tortoni.
Oh,
some time
yeah,
ago from
yeah. Oh, yeah,
Taste,
Ken's a really old friend, yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of great stories.
Oh, yeah, heaps. Actually, I'll tell you one. I don't know if I should, but I'll tell you this. They're always the best ones.
Sure.
TMG was staying at a hotel in St Kilda, the Caratal, I think it was, and they must have been partying too hard, and the guy said, look, no more parties, that's it, it's too loud, people are complaining. And that was okay, but unfortunately they were up, I think you used to park your car underneath, so they were on like the first floor.
Yeah.
So the guys all went in, and I remember Ken and Ted getting us to stand on rubbish bins and holding our hands up and just dragging us through the windows. So we were a lot thinner then too, I might add. So it was easily done. So yeah, that was quite fun.
What about AC/DC in the mid-70s? Did you catch them?
Yeah, I was a little bit young and probably a little bit naughty, but we used to go to the Hard Rock Cafe in the city in Melbourne.
Yep.
And
Of course,
I
they
think
played
there
there.
were,
They played there a
all
lot.
the time, yeah. And there were 3 or 4 levels, and I remember seeing AC/DC there, and I remember thinking, oh wow, this is kind of cool. This is a little bit different, So, and even now the song I'm hearing, Stevie Wright and all those great musos in excess. I remember the first time I saw them, they were singing a song about cabbages, and I thought, what is this, But we were so lucky to have been around in that time, in that era, to have all that great music, I'm so thankful.
So what about if you had to name one or two of your all-time favourite TMG songs, and why do you think they stand up?
Look, I think it's just good time rock and roll, and that sounds really old and daggy, but it's pub rock, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I don't know if it's the memories that make you feel good, because you think of, when you used to go to the pubs and see all the bands and how good it was, or I don't know, it's just their songs tell stories, and this is an argument I have with my kids. You know, the music they listen to, there's no stories.
But the
in
music
their
stands up, though. You can play something from any of the, but particularly
but mostly
the TMG
you can.
stuff. You put it on and it still sounds so great.
Oh, definitely. And they tell their little stories, and it's great. It's just great rock and roll kind of music, you know. I always boycotted discos. We only went to pubs that had live music, and that was from a very young age, because of course we all went to pubs way earlier than what we were legally allowed to. So, we were just very, very lucky, and the music does stand up, and it still gives you that good feeling when you listen to it, you know.
Why should TMG be inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame?
Oh, well, there you go. There's a can of worms. I'm amazed that they haven't as yet been inducted. It's really a huge disgrace that they haven't.
Sure.
They broke so many records. They've gone where other bands haven't. They're amongst the first to tour nationally.
They've had a cultural impact?
Oh, absolutely. They did the hard slog when others didn't. And look, they deserve it. It's as simple as that. They deserve to be there. And the fact that they aren't there already is ridiculous.
Hopefully time will rectify that.
Oh, he's hoping. Hopefully, yeah.
Thanks for sharing your memories today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
We've got Rick Lum with us. Can I just get your opinion on how important or how special is a day like today, a tribute day for Ted Mulry?
I think it's really special. I mean, Ted Mulry is one of the legends of Aussie rock, and it's really great that people want to preserve the memory of what he's contributed to the music industry, and let's just keep it going, eh?
I've got to rack your brain. So do you have a vivid memory of your first time when you met Ted?
Yeah, I'm going way back to when Hush was starting out. We went through an agency called On Blue, and they used to get us all sorts of funny gigs as you do when you're starting out. You know, like we played church socials and weddings, parties and anything. And one time we had to do a gig backing Ted, and it was at the old Chevron Hilton Spade Spade Room, I think it was called, up the King's Cross.
Okay.
Ted was doing a show there, and our agent said he needs a backing band. This was before he formed TMG.
Really?
I think
who was in the Hush lineup?
Julia was his big hit then.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So Julia was out.
Yeah.
Okay. And who was in the Hush lineup then?
The original lineup was Robin Jackson,
yep.
Keith Lamb, and John Coots, the drummer.
So what about memories of Hush playing with TMG? You must have several fond ones.
We didn't do a lot with TMG.
Okay.
If we did, I probably don't remember them. I mean, we used to tour all over Australia and used to tour with all different bands, but to be honest, I don't recall any vivid memories of playing with TMG.
Okay. How do you think, looking back, some of Ted's songs stand up in 2016? You got any favourites?
I like Jump in My Car. That was one of the big hits. And I did a few covers that were pretty good, you know. But,
I like Heart of Stone. That's my favourite
Heart of Stone
track. A little bit of Glad All Over there from Get Rocked, taken from the Memorial Day for Ted Mulry held at Lockie's Hotel in Leppington in Sydney. Get Rocked are an outfit featuring former Hush bassist Rick Lum, who we just heard from sharing his memories of Ted. Chatted with Rick extensively about all things Hush and his life in rock and roll, an interview which we will upload sometime in the future. Folks, we better wrap this show up. If you're a fan of Ted, TMG or Australian rock and roll, I hope you enjoyed this show. And let me remind you again, TMG with Steve Mulry and Mark Evans on board are back and doing great things. Do not miss seeing them live. Okay, you can contact us via email at australianrockshow@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at AusRockShow, AUS Rock Show. We are also on Facebook. And if you haven't given us a like yet, please do so. Be sure to visit our website at australianrockshow.com. All the past episodes are there free for you to download and enjoy. You can hear the Australian Rock Show Ozrock's loudest and proudest rock and roll podcast via iTunes, Stitcher and also TuneIn. And once again, if you are listening in via iTunes, please do us a favour by leaving us a quick show review. It improves our ranking and helps others to find us. Another great way to show your support is by clicking on that donation button on our homepage and contributing a couple of bucks. It helps us pay the bills and to also keep this show FREE. In closing, let me add this. The music which Ted Mulry made was and still is so special to so many people. And be in no doubt, it's this wonderful collection of songs which will ensure Ted's memory lives on. Thanks again for listening, folks. Let's drift back in time and close out with a song which, lyrically, I consider to be among some of his best work. Here is the much-missed Ted Mulry with Memories. Until next time, this is Dennis, out.